So let's wait for a little bit more time, give everyone some time to join, and we kick things off in about a minute. Hmm? So we can kick things off. Hello, everyone, PM, PM, wherever you are. Welcome to another Metis BuidlHour. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, in the build hours, we partner with another protocol that is a dev tool or a dev focused protocol. And we teach you how to deploy a dApp or a smart contract using this protocol or tool. And in this build hour, we're here with Forward. We have Mr. Key here. We're going to learn how to use Forward to drag and drop a dApp, like build a dApp using the drag and drop feature. And we're going to build it on the Metis mainnet. So about us, my name is Rami. I'm an engineer in the Web3 space. I started with a background in cybersecurity, and I'm currently leading Metis DevRel team. And I've worked on an array of projects that are related to identity, ownership, DeFi. I have developed the Metis Safe wallet, which is broadly used all over the Metis ecosystem. And I love to work with data. Now, Mr. Key, tell us about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm very happy to be here right now. I am Key. I live in Dubai. I've been in the world of blockchain for the last 10 years, entered 2013. And I've been the founder of Key Difference Media, a marketing agency and incubator that has helped raise over $550 million since the early 2017 days. And in 2018, we really saw that the challenge that existed was that the industry was complex. And that is what got me started onto this journey with Forward. More on that later. But right now, I'm pleased to be here, very happy and excited to be in this warm community with every one of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we are very excited and we're glad to have you here. So for today's agenda, for our build hour, we're going to learn about blockchain. What is it? How does it work? And what is Ethereum blockchain? Next, we're going to see how does the Ethereum and the Metis blockchain work, and what problems do the Metis network solve. We're going to learn how about dApps on Metis and how to deploy them. And finally, we're going to deploy a contract and the dApp on Metis using Forward's drag and drop feature. All right. So for the Ethereum blockchain, first, let's dive into what is a blockchain. So a blockchain is it's like a ledger. It's like a ledger of transactions, a ledger of blocks. So each block would have a number of transactions that are like there forever on the network. So the network is this set of blocks that are built on top of each other, and each block is related to the block behind it, so that nobody can alter an existing block. All right. So your old transactions cannot be changed. So the state cannot be changed unless with a new transaction, the old state cannot be changed. Now the Ethereum blockchain is so the blockchain started with Bitcoin, and then like we have the Ethereum blockchain, which is just like Bitcoin, but has smart contracts, which are code in the blockchain. So the Ethereum can execute code on the blockchain. Smart contracts are just like applications that are built on top of the network. Uh, so the smart contracts are run by the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine. Uh, the EVM is it's just like it's similar to like the CPU of the blockchain. Let's say it executes the programs, the smart contracts. Sorry, and sorry, I need to take some water. So yeah, the EVM, like we said, executes the smart contracts. Uh, the smart contracts do not work by themselves. You need to call the smart contracts. Smart contracts are consisting of functions that you can call. Each function has some functionality. So, uh, for example, each token is a smart contract. Each ERC20 token, for example, the USDT is a smart contract. And when you want to send some USDT to your friend or to someone, you would actually call the transfer function, and you would send a transaction that has the data, the encoded data of the transfer function to this smart contract, which is an address. So the smart contract has an address. Yeah, you would send this transaction, and the EVM would decode this data and execute your transaction. And that's how you send some USDT or some Metis tokens to any other address. Now, the challenges that face Ethereum are scalability. Ethereum is um, a network that is very secure, highly secure. It The TPS of Ethereum is about 30 transactions per second. But if we want to go for adoption, for public adoption, we need to have a very higher number, since like the whole world now uses Visa and MasterCard, and TPS for this transfer way for this the TPS for Visa, for example, is about 16,000 as far as I know. For Ethereum, it's just 30. So here comes the need for scaling solutions. Scaling means to take some of the one of the ways for scaling Ethereum is to take some of the transactions off the Ethereum chain and then compress them together in a way. That's how we do it. We would compress them together, these transactions, and submit a proof of existence of these transactions to the Ethereum blockchain. So in this way, it's almost like these transactions were executed on Ethereum, but they were not executed on the Ethereum chain. They were executed on another chain, uh, for example, the Metis chain, and then these transactions would be rolled up to Ethereum. This is for scaling. And yeah, we talked about layer 2. Layer 2 is these networks that scale Ethereum, that take some of the transactions off the chain to increase the TPS, uh, sort of provide the Ethereum blockchain to people who cannot pay, for example, $80 for gas on a single transaction. And like those of you who do not know about gas is it's like a fee that the EVM burns some of it and takes some of it to the miners or the validators. Uh, this fee is the cost of running the network. So currently the fee on Ethereum is very high, and like I said, there needs to be solutions to scale the Ethereum blockchain to make it available for everyone in the world. And here comes Metis blockchain. which, uh, like I said, uh, takes some of the transactions uh, of the Ethereum blockchain and execute them, and then rolls them up in like a, let's say, a small proof, all right, and then submits this proof to Ethereum network. So instead of let's say like submitting 1,000 transactions on Ethereum, you would submit them on the Metis blockchain, and there would be a single transaction on Ethereum, saving so much gas, uh, so much time also, because transactions on Ethereum take about 5 minutes to finalize, which is a lot. So now, why would you build on Metis? Because uh, transactions are finalized this moment. Like if you send a transaction right now, it is just finalized. You don't need to wait for it to be included in a block. It is already included in a block if you send it right now. So like it's fast, it's scalable, it's secure also, and most importantly, we are decentralized, and we're becoming more and more decentralized and secure. Uh, about Yeah, we talked a little bit about transactions. Like I said, a transaction is uh, just like a record that you give to the blockchain, and the blockchain save this record in, let's say, a block. All right. A transaction has an address from, an address to, has some data, and has a gas fee. All right. So this is what defines the transaction. I hope I'm not forgetting something, but these are like the most important. Yeah, of course, it has a value also for Ether. So this is any transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. Starts with a from, which is you. If you want to send a transaction, the from is you. The to is the person, address, or contract that you're sending to. The data would be empty if it's just a regular transaction. If it's like if you're sending just Ethereum or Metis, it would be empty. But if you're interacting with a contract or with a token, for example, you would have some data, which is the encoded function call. All right. Or it would be sometimes a contract bytecode to be deployed to the blockchain. Um, so yeah, these are the cases of transactions. A contract is deployed by a transaction that is sent to the contract address, the new contract address, uh, which is calculated by the create OB code, if I'm not mistaken. And it would this transaction would be from you to the contract address containing the data of the contract bytecode. Now, how to interact with a contract? Like we said, you would send a transaction from your address to the contract address, with the data being the function call encoded using this Solidity encoding. You can look it up. Uh, the ABI encoding, abstract binary interface. Architecture of a decentralized app. Yes. So here we can give it a way to forward, where they can talk about dApps and how they deploy them. What is a dApp consistent of? What are the components? Where is the backend? When do we need the backend, and so on.
That was a beautiful run through on the basics, Rami. Thank you so much for that. What excites me quite a bit here is that in a moment after I shut up, Billy is going to walk you through all of this practically. Everything that you saw on the deck, theoretically, you would see that. And most importantly, you would see how simple it is if you're using Forward. But let me take a few steps back before I get onto what dApp is and how it works. Let me just give you a brief of where we come from. So forward is an idea of simplicity. And when I told you about my introduction, I mentioned that we helped a lot of companies raise funds back in 2017. But when we looked at the reality, the number of companies who could take that and deploy, bring some idea to life was very, very less. And that was because things were complex, things were hard to bring idea to life. So we sat and tried to brainstorm to figure what can we do that can bring a person's idea to life in the shortest time span, removing all the barriers to entry in terms of cost, in terms of the learning curve, and everything. So we looked at the Web 2 models in the traditional world. How did the transition happen? And we modeled around the successful thesis that we came across. That is a drag and drop, no code solution with a curated marketplace where developers contribute their dApps or code bases and users use it. So, what does a dApp mean here? A dApp is a decentralized application, an application that's running on the blockchain. And this decentralized app, which is a dApp, consists of a front end, which is where you interact on the browser with. It has an backend smart contract, which is what you deploy on the blockchain itself, like in Metis, to be able to interact with the blockchain. And you have, or you could have, an administrative backend, a panel where you could modify things. So these three combined becomes a template in forward. So we will in a moment go real quick to look at the demo of two parts, which Billy will share. But before we dive in on that, uh, the belief that we have at Forward is that the technology of blockchain is one thing, but that is preceded by the philosophy of it. The philosophy that we need to bring this technology to the world, to decentralize it to a point where the problems that are faced in the economy, in the world of business, everything that we see are resolved once and for all. And that's why we are here. And if that process is so complex for people to use, for people to understand, for a creator, for an entrepreneur to get it, that is not a very good sign. So we need not only to simplify it, but also bring everyone in the industry together, collaborate. So Forward's philosophy has been a collaborative one, where we brought all the chains, all the oracles, the developers, the business owners, everybody together to coexist in one place, where everyone can connect, they can build, and they can run something without having to compete with each other. So uh, right now we have with us our co-founder Mitch. I would like him to share his vision as well, and then Bill, you take over from there.
Thanks, Key, and Rami, thanks for that intro. Really interesting to listen to you. And all the devs that are listening to this, it's very interesting and important to understand that all the work that you do ultimately is for an end user. So you're developing something, whether it's infrastructure or an application, and somebody is going to use it in some form. And even though we've got maybe a couple of 100 million people that are engaging in this industry now, it's not the mass market. We still need to appeal to that 98% of the market that won't interact with anything that's complex. They're used to using tools that they are familiar and comfortable with. And what Forward does is it provides that extra step for you as a developer to reach that market. So it simplifies for somebody that doesn't actually understand the technicality, that doesn't want to spend time learning about the complexity, that isn't interested. They want something useful that they can use in their applications. And that's what Forward does. It takes what you do, that beautiful creativity, and it allows you to interface with a mass market where you can actually access that market in a very simple way that they understand. And Billy's just going to run through that with you and show you practically how that works. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Mitch. Okay, so I'm going to obviously take you through the practical demonstration today. So first of all, my name's Billy. I'm the hands-on CTO here at Forward Protocol, and obviously I'm very excited to show you the functionality today. Now, just to give you a little bit of forewarning, a good chunk of this code that made this website was done by myself. So that means that if you do have any technical questions, feel free to ask them. But I do ask that you probably wait until the end to ask those questions, just because I may answer them as I'm going through the presentation. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to take you through the first stage from a developer's point of view, and that's going to show you how to develop, store, and release a fully functional dApp package onto our marketplace. That's without any SDKs, fully through our website application. Then after that, I'm going to show you from the user's perspective, a zero code user, how you would deploy that package onto their own dApp front end and access the back end through that application as well. And it will also have a subdomain applied to that. So if you're wanting to, you should be able to view that subdomain at the end of the presentation as well. So let's get started. What I'll do is I'll share my screen, so just bear with me. And we'll start off from the homepage. So first thing you're going to do when we're getting started is you're going to obviously come to the forwardprotocol.io page, and straight away there's a couple of buttons here that we can see. Now, the first one that we're going to do is we're just going to click on deploy your dApp, which will take you through to the forward factory. Now, if you're a developer, we do ask that you register through our registration form. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I'm fairly sure that most of the people here know how to fill out a registration form. But when you do fill out this registration, you need to tick this toggle down the bottom here, which says become a developer, and that you have read and accept the terms and conditions. So once you've done that, that will activate all the features that I'm going to actually go through today, especially if you're a developer. Now I'm just going to switch screens here for a second as well, and I'll show you the next stage. So I'm just going to log in with one of our demo accounts as well. Fantastic. So once you've created that account and we've logged in, this is the first screen you'll see. Now it's fairly intuitive that you can actually upload a contract straight away or create a template straight away. But normally what you're also going to see is just some newly added contracts down the bottom here. And we can also search for the latest smart contracts or any particular smart contracts that you want to actually access. But first, what we're actually going to do is we're going to go through the factory. So the factory, we can either click on upload contract or go to the factory over here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to upload contract. Now, remember, this stage is strictly for developers. So if you're a non-developer watching this right now, a lot of this is going to be Greek to you. Some of this you may not understand. But if you do want clarification, again, you can ask at the end in our Q&A. Now, the first thing I want to do is basically upload a new contract. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on new contract. And because Metis is on the EVM network, we're going to be using a Solidity format today. So what I'll do is I'll drag our Solidity contract into our wizard. And you'll notice there's a bunch of options that pop up. So first of all, it's just read everything in this contract, and it's stating that the best compiler that we can use at the moment would be 0.8. Now you can select other compiler versions if you need to, but at the moment, this is probably the best version for this contract. So we're going to stick with that one for now. Next, you'll notice that down the bottom, there's actually multiple contracts in this single contract address. So that's because what we have to do to upload the contract is to actually flatten it. Again, if you're a developer, you'll know what this means, but it also means that if you want to select a different contract inside the file, you can actually select it to read a different contract. So now that we've uploaded the contract, what we want to do is we actually want to compile it. So our system does this all automatically for you. It normally takes a second, but what it will do is it will automatically compile the ABI and bytecode. Now, as a developer, you will also recognize that this is normally required to launch onto an EVM network. So if you're a developer and you want to double check that everything in here in the ABI is correct, you can do so before you move on to mapping. And you can also check the bytecode. Now, if you can read bytecode, you are probably some kind of mathematical genius. So it's probably only the ABI that you're going to be reading. But if you see any actual defaults in here, you can go back and make sure that the contract's uploaded properly. So moving on, now that we've saved this, we move into the section where we want to define our functions. Now, in a contract, we're going to have a bunch of functions that essentially we need to translate to the user. So the reason that we have this section is we want to make it clear to the user when it comes to them releasing the template, what all of these functions actually do. So as a developer, you probably recognize some of these functions in here, but as a general user, they probably will have no idea what any of this actually means. So what we can do is we can actually assign things to the names of the functions so that they can drag and drop these functions later in their template. Now, up the top as well, we have the constructors. So a constructor is essentially a parameter that constructs the initial stage of the contract. And what we want to do in here is also include some descriptions. So what I'm going to do is basically have here name of contract, symbol of contract, and down the bottom is something that is unique to basically an NFT contract. Well, mostly unique. Most contracts still have a URI, but with NFTs, we need a very specific type of URI, which is an IPFS. So down the bottom, I'm just going to add a generic IPFS, something like that, just so they know that it has to have an IPFS address in here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to also get rid of the set the default values, because the configure tags here is essentially all we need for this demonstration today. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through and add some of the descriptions here, just to show you what I mean by changing it for the user's benefit. So first of all, we've got default admin role. That means that's the main administrator, right? Next, we've got the minter role. This is the default role for the minter, so the person that's going to be minting the NFTs. Thirdly, we've got the URI, and this is the NFT URI address. Third, approve, fairly standard, approve transaction, and then I'm just going to go through and add the rest in here so I don't take up too much time and bore everybody to death. So just bear with me. As you can see, this is a large contract with a lot of functions. So it is imperative that we actually make sure that everybody knows what these functions do, because they could very easily, as a user, get lost and make a mistake on their contract. That's one that also fairly self-explanatory, but it's always good to have these here just in case. Perfect. So now that's done, what we can do is we can actually move on to creating the interface itself and the template itself. Now, the first thing that you'll come to when you come into creating a template is you actually have two options. One is just a general application. So you choose this option if you only want to use the application yourself. And what you would do, or the user wants to use the application themselves without some kind of front-end interface. And they would access that through the My Applications section. However, today, what we want to do is we want to have both a front end and a back end. Now, I'm going to leave the default values up here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create a front end template and then a back end template just to show you the functionality of the template builder. So up the top here, you see that we've got different functionality, obviously, for phones and different devices as well as desktop, just to make sure that your website is fitting and it's reactive. And what you'll see on our right-hand side is essentially a bunch of set drag and drop features that we can utilize to build a page. Now, at the moment, we've just got some very basic ones in here. And in the future, what we want is actually the community of developers to sell their own design packages in our template builder here. So if you do decide to join our community, there is an additional chance for revenue to sell your own design packages in the templates for developers as well. Now, because we don't have that just yet, we'll just use some of the basics. So let's say we're making a main page here. What we want to do is we want to introduce a nav bar up the top, and then we just want to introduce some of the basic functions. So we've already created all the buttons previously in the last stage for all of these functions here. And I'll just drag a couple over here because I'm actually going to wipe this in a second just to show you how far you can actually go. So as you'll see here, we've got the functions ready to go that we can actually utilize, and they connect directly to the contract automatically. So if someone accesses this page, they will be able to directly access your contract. Now, if you want to add some additional stuff in here, like say a description of the main administrator function, you can drag in a text box here and say, this function tells you who owns the contract and can make all the changes to the contract. Something like that. Cool. Now, let's say that you actually want to edit this as a proper developer. Well, we've actually included some, what I would say, micro development environments that allow you to edit both the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript of the actual template itself. Now, I will preface that with the JavaScript. It is only inline scripts at the moment because we want to make sure that this is still secure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of that. So I'm just going to go up here, and you can see that it automatically adds all our code here, but I want to add some custom code. So first of all, I'm going to clear this page here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some custom HTML. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy our HTML here. And I'm just going to add it up the top here in our edit code button, and I'll click on save. So great, we've added the HTML. So what it's going to do is it's just going to give us the default style that is assigned to the actual template builder. But we want to actually assign some custom styles to this. So what we can do is we can go into that same section and we can actually add some custom style sheet or CSS to our template as well. And we click on save. And as you can see, we've got a very nice interface to interact with this ERC 721 token. Once that's done, what we want to do is we actually want to save this, and we want to move on to creating the backend for our template. Now, the reason that we want to create a backend is because we want the user that deploys this contract to have full administrative access to essentially every single function in case they don't want the public to view all the functions that could potentially have access to this contract. So we can drag and drop all these in here. Now, again, I'm probably not going to go through and drag and drop every single one here, but you can see the reason why I named the functions earlier, because they really need to actually have their own definition that makes sense to somebody that's trying to access this program or access this application. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if you really wanted to, you can actually create multiple pages both for the front end and for the back end. Again, today, I'm not going to go into too much detail on making those right now, but we can go back and edit this at any point, including after releasing this to the marketplace. So if I want to go back to the front end template, I can click on Save down the bottom, and then I can go back and edit it. But essentially, if we need to create new pages, we can just say homepage, admin, or something like that. Click on a new page here, and then we can add multiple stages and multiple pages to our actual template here, which means that we can have, say, a different admin for different pages. Anyway, moving forward. Once we're happy with our template, once we're happy with any of the code, we've updated everything, we've gone through and essentially made sure that this description is useful for the users. We can then save it, and we can move on to our description for the marketplace. So this is our marketplace publication section, and it's incredibly important because this is going to be the front face of the page or the package that you're going to be selling on the marketplace. So the first thing you want is you actually want to upload an icon. And again, this is important because this is going to be the first thing that somebody sees on the marketplace. So I'll click on Upload Token right now. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go into here, and I'll upload an image. Fantastic. And then we'll move on to the next stage. So we do have multiple ways in which our developers can be paid for their work. If you're obviously wanting to give your work away for free, or you're just wanting to be generous, you can do so. Up the top here, we have an option that basically allows you to deploy for free. But most people that we probably are going to be seeing on our marketplace are going to want some kind of remuneration for the project that they're releasing. So today, we're just going to keep it really simple. As you can see, you can do monthly fixed price, you can do a yearly fixed price, you can do a flat ongoing fee, or you can do a one-time deployment fee. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're just going to do a one-time deployment fee, let's say of $100. And with that fee, we're basically going to only ever get $100 in remuneration, because what our system does is it actually calculates against any of the networks that are being utilized to launch your template. So that means that no matter which network you launch on, you will always get the exact value of that coin for $100 in USD. If you put $100 here, we calculate that for you. Now, again, we've got additional plugins that we will be issuing from the community. So these will be additional functions that essentially we can't script into the template, but you can add them on here. These will also come with a fee from developers in the community, but obviously we're not going to put anything there. And then, oh, did I click the down button then? Next, we've also got a small option that you can quickly test that your contract is actually deploying. So if we click this, this is just going to get rid of the fees, because obviously we're just going to not charge ourselves $100 immediately. But this will give you some good insight into essentially all the networks that we can launch on. We've got about 712 networks that we can actually launch on at the moment. And you can obviously scroll through and see which ones you want to deploy on. But obviously today our main focus is Metis. So if you want to deploy for testing, you'll see an option down the bottom which says test deploy once you click on that. But today, again, we are releasing to the marketplace. Next, we've got our descriptions. Now, these are incredibly important because these tell the users what your application does, how to deploy it, and may even include things like videos and step-by-step tutorials. So I'm just going to fill these out just to give you an example of some things that you can actually put in here. So we'll put in here this one, then we'll put in here. Oh, what's going on here? Actually, we'll skip this one. We'll say step 1, step 2. Again, just because this is a demonstration, we'll probably be deleting this afterwards, but we just want to make sure that we've got something in here. Cool, fantastic. Next, if you have a video or a tutorial, you can do so and add it in here. You can change the version. So this is a version, say 1 or 0.01. You can set the version here. The provider, this will try and link from a database of providers that we already have. So if we say Metis for the provider, this is something that will show up that it's from a Metis developer. There will be an audit report as well. So if you have the contract audited, you can put in the audit report, and then we just need to make sure people can find it. So if they're searching, they will say this is an NFT contract. It's also got tokens. And then we'll also add some additional tags here like mintable and access control. Cool. So once we're done here, what we can do is we can click on save. And now you have the option of finally releasing it to the marketplace. But if you're not quite confident in what you've done yet, you can leave without release and come back and edit it later. But today, what we're wanting to do is we're actually wanting to release to the marketplace. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And that's essentially it. What we've done in probably about 10-15 minutes, without obviously having to explain all your actions, you can have a fully functional application launched to our marketplace, ready for someone to purchase and deploy on any of our 712 networks. So as you can see, this simplifies development and deployment infinitely. We can have any developer come through with any type of Solidity contract, link it up to a D application with a front end and a back end with multiple pages. And as you can imagine, the amount of D applications that can be put into our marketplace is essentially infinite. We could have hundreds, we could have thousands, and it's just up to the minds of their developers as to what applications will actually be released here. But it's sort of exciting to think of what can actually come through here. Now, getting back to the demonstration, what we're going to move into now is our users. So essentially, this section is mainly going to show you from a user perspective what you will see, how you will deploy your application, and how quickly you can actually deploy your application from selecting it on the marketplace to having your own front-end domain. So up the top here, because we selected NFTs, I can actually quickly search for that, and I can try and find the one that we just created, which is this one just here, the Metis one. So now you'll notice in here that everything that I've put in here, we've got the description, the features, and we've got a list of functions that automatically generates to show you essentially what the user will see when they want to deploy. Up the top as well, you've got some little tags up here that we've added. So we've got the mintable access control. And down the right-hand side here, we've got our meta info with our deploy instructions as well. Now, we've also got the latest publish. So if a developer comes through and they update their contract, you'll see the latest date that they've updated the contract with. You'll see which version it is, the creator, and you'll see the amount of recent deployments that have come through on the contract as well. So incredibly useful information here, but this is really useful for users to make sure that they're utilizing a contract that is not only safe, but popular as well. And usually contracts are popular for a reason. Now, today I'm actually going to deploy a slightly better one, better contract that has slightly had more time given to it to give more features to it. So I'm just going to select one from here. Now, this contract was actually made by, it's still a similar contract, but it was actually made by one of our in-house devs, and he made it through our platform as well. So every single contract or every single dApp that you see in our marketplace was created using our wizard interface. As you can see here, there's a lot more descriptions here. We've actually got some video down the bottom here, which we can watch for a deployment instructions and also a full tutorial on how to utilize this. Now, over on the right-hand side as well, we've got our recent deployments. So you can see that we've been launching on this contract a fair bit. But what we're actually going to do today is we're going to launch on the Metis network. So first of all, what we want to do with this is we want to click on the deploy button. Now, just bear with me. Fantastic. Okay. So as you can see, this is a very similar contract. Now, the reason that I use this template is because it's essentially the same one that we tried to use in our developer portal, but this one's actually linked up. Now, there is one thing that you just have to make sure you're doing when you're actually generating one of these scripts is you have to make sure that you are linking as a developer the form name. So they'll have unique IDs in here, and this one is just linked to the actual IDs for these forms in here. Now, as a user, when you come through here, you're not going to know how to code. You're not going to know how to basically change anything here. So you're just going to rely on the interface. So if I was, say, a Metis user and I wanted to create this ERC721 token for the Metis network, I would want to make this look a little bit more stylized towards the Metis brand kit. So what I would do is I would edit some of the things here. Now, as a user, because this is very simple, what I can do is, first of all, we'll do something simple and we'll change the background. So we'll go into the decorations here and we'll click on, actually, no, 1, 2. There we go. That's for the text. We should be able to change our background. There it is there. We should be able to change our background here. So if I click this one here, close this out, we're going to have this blue background. And then what I want to do is I actually want to change the color. I'll just make sure I'm not in the typography here. We want to change the color of our background here. Now we can either do that with this color tab here, but because we're essentially trying to add some images later, we can also add it via the bottom down here. Actually, look, we'll stick with the decoration side for now and stick with the static background color, and we'll try and match the Metis color scale. So if I quickly grab that here, I'm pretty sure I've got a general color that we can utilize that matches Metis. That looks to be similar to their logo color, but let's make it a little bit lighter, because what I actually want to do is I want to bring in a logo. So what I'm going to do is go down to extra. Oh, God, sometimes I'm silly. Of course it's in here. So what I want to do is I want to add this image up the top here, and then I want to drag and drop the Metis brand in here. So it's very easy to obviously drag and drop that in here, and we can use these functions still. But what I also want to do is I just want to make sure that this sits somewhere nice. So you can drag anything that exists in here and the code will automatically format it for you. We also have a version that can expand to the full size. So if you do want to use this as a full size template, you can do so. But this is essentially just trying to change this to look a little bit more like the brand of Metis, because we are releasing onto the Metis network. I'm going to change this typography again. We'll make this black, and we'll make this one black as well. Fantastic. So we've got this ready to go for Metis. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to save this one, and we're going to go into our deployment stage. So this deployment stage, again, there's only really two stages to somebody deploying an application. It's choosing and editing the template of how they like it, and then it's them actually just setting the parameters. So you remember before that we actually set some parameters and we set those functions. These are actually those constructor parameters that we went through in the dev section. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to upload an image. So the image here is going to be an image that is one that will be displayed on the Block Explorer. Now, if you don't know what the Block Explorer is, the Block Explorer is essentially just a giant ledger that records every single transaction on the network. So it means that if someone wants to view a transaction from our contract, they'll be able to view this little icon here. Next, we want to name our application. Now, the reason that we want to name our application, because as I mentioned before, when we go into My Applications, if we have multiple applications, we want to know what our application is. So I'm just going to call this one Metis, and we'll say NFT interface. Cool. Then we'll add a brief description. Mints NFTs on Metis network. Fantastic. And then we'll have a subdomain. So essentially what a subdomain is this is going to be the URL that you're going to give to people so they can access the front end of your application. So we'll call this Metis NFT demo. Fantastic. Now I'll leave these test tokens and token symbols the same. We'll leave this IPFS the same because again, this is just a demonstration, but you will be able to view this going forward. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I actually want to make sure that this is released on the mainnet and not on the testnet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for Metis, and you'll see that we have all their testnets here, but we actually want to release on the Andromeda mainnet, which will prompt us to switch to the mainnet so we can deploy properly. Now, once we're switched to this network, all we have to do is basically click on submit. And this will take care, oh no, what's happening here? Why do I not have enough funds? Okay, that's interesting. So for some reason, now we did check that we had these funds before, and this is the same. This is the same account here. So unfortunately, it looks like our Metis funds have not been transferred, or they haven't been transferred. So I'm just going to quickly switch over to our Gourley testnet just for now, just to show you that you can actually change this and release on any network. And this will basically go through the steps of releasing. So in any transaction on the network, you have to confirm transactions. You have to make sure that they actually deploy properly. confirm this one here. Tell you what, let me just double check that I am on the right address, because we also want to check that we've got these. Yeah, I am on the right address. Okay. Never mind that. Cool. So once we've deployed to the network, what you can do is you can actually view any of the applications that you've actually deployed in the past. Now, this is why it was important, obviously, to make sure that we utilize the right application and we name it properly. So when we click on news, this is going to take us through to the Metis NFT demo subdomain on forwardfactory.net, which when it's the first time, it's going to take a little while to load up. But also you can click on the admin page here to access any of the functions of your contract as well. So as you can see here, this will also take a little bit to load on our first time, and just make sure that we're connected to the right contract here. Perfect. And then we can access any of the functions of our contract here. And we've got a fully functional front end page for our website. Cool. So now that we've got our application here, or our D application, what we want to do is we actually want to mint some NFTs. Now, this being a demonstration, we haven't actually gone through and uploaded an NFT IPFS package. If you're a developer, you'll know what that means, but you need to normally prepare a large package of NFTs to launch onto an IPFS.io domain. But what we're going to be using today is just the test domain to show that it's showing the NFT contract and that it's minting NFTs. If you want to attach pictures to them, you can do so by IPFS, but today we're just going to show the basic functionality. So first of all, what we want to do is we want to check that we have minting capability. So if we click on mint here, before we mint, we want to make sure our address is actually linked. So what we can do is, first of all, we will get a bytecode down the bottom here. So I'll just make sure that this is connected and that this is reading. Oops, I'm connected to the mainnet. Hold on. No, I really want to stay on the test net. What's going on here? Sorry about this, guys. Please remember that this is alpha. So if you do run into issues like this, we do have a ticketing system down the bottom here to make sure that when inevitable issues do happen on an alpha testing phase, that you do have the ability to report them. So just bear with me, because we want to make sure that we're on the right network, because we deployed to the actual. Why is it asking to switch to this network? We didn't deploy on this one. That's strange. Okay. So we are having some technical difficulties with this. It is expected. We did test this multiple times, just even minutes before. And of course, on the live presentation, something happens. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly close this. I'm going to stop the sharing just for a second while I fix this. Just bear with me.
First, thank you so much, Billy. Well demonstrated. We're gonna wait for you to fix the issue, and it's totally fine. Like I'm a developer, I understand that these things happen. For now, if we have any questions in the chat, if someone wants to ask us a question so far. You see, we have no questions. just people learning here.
Yeah. Again, guys, if you do have any questions, please feel free. Okay, there we go. It's back up and working now. So it's obviously just taken a second to connect. Right. Let me just double check that this is working. Sorry about the delays here, guys. Just want to make sure that we're actually showing this properly. Any questions coming through? No. That's strange, because it's saying that we've deployed to the Andromeda mainnet, and I can see it on the Andromeda mainnet, but that's bizarre. Anyway, we didn't deploy to the Andromeda mainnet because we didn't have enough funds. Okay, we'll do this one differently. So I don't know whether this is just an issue with the Gourley network on Metis, but it's consistently asking us to connect to the Metis mainnet instead of the Metis Gourley network. So
Can I send you some fonts to your account?
maybe?
Yes, that would be perfect. I can send you through the contract ID, sorry, the address.
Can you check now?
Yep. Yep, I've got 2 Metis. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deploy that again, so just bear with me. Actually, this is a good opportunity to show you that if you do mess up with an application, you can actually go into My Applications and then delete it.
You're not sharing the screen.
Is it not showing? Oh, it might have just been a little bit
All right,
lag.
thank you.
Yep, perfect. Just making sure that's showing. So as you can see here, if we do mess up with an application, we can simply delete it and then start again. So we'll go back into Marketplace. Wait for this one to load again. Oops, wrong one. That's ERC20. We want the NFT contract. I'm not going to spend too much time this time on this one here, so I won't go over a full explanation of everything I'm doing again. Oops. We'll go into the decorations here, get rid of this one, change our background. Upload that image again. Oops, wrong image. What am I doing? I'll find it eventually. There we go. Oh, there's as good a place as any. Save it again, go through the same process again. So we're basically making sure that we're uploading our icon, we're naming our application, Metis NFT contract, and we're adding in our description again. So we're going Metis contracts for NFTs, and we'll add another one in here, Metis NFT, and we'll say demonstration this time. Cool. We're on the Andromeda mainnet. I'll double check we've got funds. Perfect. Okay, and then we will submit this and we'll go through the proper process of deploying it on the mainnet. Perfect. We're deploying onto the mainnet now. Wait for it to load. Now, once we've done that, this should work now because we actually are on the mainnet, and this one will take a while to load just because it's the first time. The admin page, though, we should be able to load relatively quickly, and we should be connected, just making sure that it's connecting to the mainnet. Perfect. Now, once we go to our main page here, what's going to happen is it's going to prompt you to connect to the main page. Now, the reason it wants you to do this is because it wants to make sure that you're the owner of the actual contract itself. So as you can see here, it will reload now and it will show that we've got test token. Well, it did show that we had test token, and normally it will show that you've got symbol here. But what we want to do, as I was mentioning before, is we want to make sure that we're the ones that actually have ownership to mint the NFT. So up the top here, we should be able to read this response now. Perfect. It's giving us a bytecode. But what we'll actually do is we'll grab that bytecode from the Explorer up the top here, just to make sure that this is the right contract address. So this will take us through to the Explorer just to make sure everything's been released properly. Yes, we have a contract creation. Yes, we've got a transaction success. So we should have a successful contract here. Now I'm just going to make sure that this is working properly. We'll have a look at the contract itself, that's confirmed. Fantastic. There's the contract there, and that's created as well. Cool. Okay. So if we want to mint an NFT, all we have to do is we have to add our address here. Now, because we've got the linked address here, we can simply click on mint, and this should mint an NFT. So it will prompt us, as per usual, to mint whatever we need to. It will ask us to do the contract, confirm the contract, and then it will send the contract off to the network and mint a single NFT. So if we want to check that NFT, again, we can go into the Explorer here. If we want to check directly the contract has been minted, we can go in here and we can just view it on the Block Explorer here. And we can see that this token has been successfully minted, and it's been minted under the token ID of 0. So if we want to check the token ID, we can check so here, and we can read that one, and it will give us the address of where that NFT is stored. So if you have uploaded any images and you want to mint them using this contract, you can do so, and it should mint them to the IPFS address. At the moment, this is just a base contract. So as you can see, it's just going to give us a general contract here, which is just an IPFS automatically generated icon. Now, if we want to change that, we can obviously change what's on our IPFS address and change any of our transfer functions. So we can transfer this NFT to somebody else now if we want to. So we can say, okay, we want to transfer it from person A to person B. We would simply put in person A's from address, their to address down the bottom here, and then we would enter in the token ID, which is 0, and then we would click on send. So we've got a contract here that essentially allows us to interact with an NFT, and we can essentially mint new NFTs on the IPFS, and we can transfer them. However, if we also want to use all of the admin functions here, we can do so using our backend. So we can check the values in here. So if we wanted to check the balance of our current account, we've only got 1 token generated. If we want to transfer ownership of the entire account, we can do so using our backend. And if we want to change our token URIs, or we want to update any transfer froms, that sort of thing, or any roles. So we can have multiple people owning different NFTs. We can do so using our back end here. Fantastic. So just to recap today, what we did is we went through from a developer perspective as to what you can actually do on our platform, how quickly you can release an application on our platform, and then we went through a user interface on how they can select an application from our marketplace and then deploy from the marketplace to their own subdomain in which they can share with whomever they like, and essentially have full functionality as a subdomain for a dApp front end as well as a back-end application. Obviously, because this is alpha, we did run into some issues, but they were quickly solved as soon as we moved on to the mainnet. Perfect. So what I'll do now is we will pass it back to the community. So if anybody has any further questions, we're happy to answer them now. And yeah, I'll pass it over to any comments or any questions.
Thank you so much, Billy.
So
Very like
we've
the
got,
introduction.
sorry, so we've got here, have you looked at integrating GraphLink? Okay, so I'm not familiar with GraphLink, but most of the time, because our platform is essentially chain agnostic, anyone can release on our platform. If you do request an integration for something that is obviously off chain, you can make sure that you integrate that into our ecosystem. So if you want it as a plugin or we want to integrate it as a feature, that's very easy to do because our entire system is essentially plug and play. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So now, yep, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Billy. I really enjoyed the demonstration. Very nice.
Yep.
And yeah, we deployed to Metis network, and it cost almost nothing. And
Yeah.
it was very fast, right?
Yeah. So actually, I can get exactly how much it costs, even with the fees on top. So it was a total of 70 cents to deploy an entire dApp with a front end and a back end onto the Metis network.
Yeah, I think like if you think about deploying to Ethereum, it will cost at least like 250 with the current kind of low gas prices. So yeah, that's what we do. If you're a beginner developer, like it's better for you to deploy your contracts on networks that scale Ethereum, like the Metis network. And also, so we're gonna wait for some questions. I believe, by the way, that the issue maybe was a wrong RPC URL. So
I'm assuming that's the case. So
yeah.
because we pull our RPCs from JSON endpoints, what most likely is that they pulled it from they haven't updated their RPC on the list that we pull from, which is strange because we've got partnerships and we use things like Infura and all that sort of stuff to make sure that our RPCs are updated. But luckily the mainnet was working properly. It's just the Gourley one for some reason caused that error. But
yeah, maybe the the config URL, like maybe the name of the network is Gourley in your config, and then the URL is the URL for mainnet. But yeah, let's see.
That could also be an issue because then I was wondering why it was saying that the testnet coin was worth $20 when I was like, it shouldn't be worth anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could have. Yeah, it's most likely the RPC. So normally they get updated every 15 minutes, but Murphy's Law, of course, when we're presenting,
Has
there
to
will
happen.
always be something that does go wrong.
Yeah.
Even in the Apple and Microsoft, or even Google, when they just did Bard, is a good example of that just recently, when they got that terrible response from Bard. But it was solved relatively quickly, especially when we
Yeah.
switched to the mainnet. So everything was working after that, which was good.
Great, amazing. So if we don't have any other questions from the community, I think Mr. Key wants to join us, and
Hey guys, so we had a beautiful theoretical session and a practical session. So right now, what is really left to do is to actually go and try it right now before something is forgotten, when the memory is fresh. Check out forwardfactory.net, deploy something on Metis today, give it a try, see how it goes. And that's how we learn, that's how we become better. And until next time, thank you so much, everyone.
thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.